I am going to attempt to stream some more Tekken today. So the former FBI Director James Comey also gave his testimony before Congress today. So I'm going to turn off the music on Tekken because I'd really like to listen to this testimony. So we're going to get into some treasure battles, and we're gonna listen to former FBI Director James Comey's testimony before Congress. Let's see what this guy has to say.
At the time of your departure from the FBI, was the FBI able to confirm any criminal allegations contained in the Steele document?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that's a question I can answer in an open setting because it goes into the details of the investigation.
Director, the term we hear most often is collusion. When people are describing possible links between Americans and Russian government entities related to the interference in our election, would you say that it's normal for foreign governments to reach out to members of an incoming administration?
Yes.
At what point does the normal contact cross the line into an attempt to recruit agents or influence or spies?
Difficult to say in the abstract. It depends upon the context, whether there's an effort.
Get ready for the next battle.
What the nature of the requests made of the American by the foreign government are. It's a judgment call based on a whole lot of facts.
At what point
I hate when the game does
would that recruitment become a counterintelligence threat to our country?
Again, difficult to answer in the abstract, but when a foreign power is using especially coercion or some sort of pressure to try and co-opt an American, especially a government official, to act on its behalf, that's a serious concern to the FBI and at the heart of the FBI's counterintelligence mission.
So if you've got a 36-page document of specific claims that are out there, the FBI would have to, for counterintelligence reasons, try to verify anything that might be claimed in there. One, and probably first and foremost, is the counterintelligence concerns that we have about blackmail.
Absolutely.
Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes. If the FBI receives a credible allegation that there is some effort to co-opt, coerce, direct, employ covertly an American on behalf of the foreign power, that's the basis on which a counterintelligence investigation is open.
And when you read the dossier, what was your reaction, given that it was 100% directed at the president?
Grind some shit up, boys.
Not a question I can answer in an open setting, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. When did you become aware of the cyber intrusion?
The first there's all kinds of cyber intrusions going on all the time. The first Russia-connected cyber intrusion I became aware of in the late summer of 2015.
And in that time frame, there were more than the DNC and the DCCC that were targets.
Correct. There was a massive effort to target government and non-governmental, near-governmental agencies like nonprofits.
What would be the estimate of how many entities out there the Russians specifically targeted in that time frame?
It's hundreds. I suppose it could be more than 1,000, but it's at least hundreds.
Wow.
When did you become aware that data had been exfiltrated?
I'm not sure exactly. I think either late 15 or early 16.
And did you, the director of the FBI, have conversations with the last administration about the risk that this posed?
Yes.
And share with us, if you will, what actions they took.
Well, the FBI had already undertaken an effort to notify all the victims, and that's what we consider the entities that were attacked as part of this massive spear phishing campaign. And so we notified them in an effort to disrupt what might be ongoing. And then there was a series of continuing interactions with entities through the rest of 15 into 16. And then throughout 16, the administration was trying to decide how to respond to the intrusion activity that it saw.
And the FBI in this case, unlike other cases that you might investigate, did you ever have access to the actual hardware that was hacked, or did you have to rely on a third party to provide you the data that they had collected?
In the case of the DNC, and I believe the DCCC, but I'm sure the DNC, we did not have access to the devices themselves. We got relevant forensic information from a private party, a high-class entity that had done the work, but we didn't get direct access.
But no content.
Correct.
Isn't content an important part of the forensics from a counterintelligence standpoint?
It is, although what was briefed to me by my folks, the people who were my folks at the time, is that they had gotten the information from the private party that they needed to understand the intrusion by the spring of 2016.
Let me go back, if I can, very briefly, to the decision to publicly go out.
So it just admitted they don't actually have the hardware. Someone else looked at it.
Was your decision influenced by the Attorney General's tarmac meeting with the former President Bill Clinton?
Yes, in a
Okay.
ultimately
Treasure
was
battle.
the thing that capped it for me, that I had to do something separately to protect the credibility of the investigation, which meant both the FBI and the Justice Department.
Were there other things that contributed to that
Welcome
that you
to
can
the King
describe in
of
the
Iron
open
Fist
session?
Tournament 7.
There were other things that contributed to that.
Tournament 7.
One significant item I know the committee's been briefed on. There's been some public accounts of it, which are nonsense, but I understand the committee's been briefed on the classified facts. Probably the only other consideration, I guess I can talk about an open setting, is that at one point the Attorney General had directed me not to call it an investigation, but instead to call it a matter, which confused me and concerned me. But that was one of the bricks in the load that led me to conclude I have to step away from the department if I close this case credibly.
Director,
Round
my
1.
last question.
Fight.
You're not only a
Oh, I
seasoned-
forgot. I've forgotten my combos.
You've led the FBI
All right.
for years. You understand the investigative process. You've worked with this committee closely. We're grateful to you.
Oh shit.
We've mutually built trust.
Boom, bitch.
Administration does. Is there any doubt in your mind that this committee will carry out its oversight role in the 2016 Russian involvement with the House Special Counsel?
It can be done
I love
in front of
finishing
lots of
on that.
conversations. But
Round
Bob Mueller
2.
is one of this country's great
Fight.
pros, and I'm sure you'll all be able to work it out with him to run it in parallel.
I want to thank you once again.
Oh, suck it, bitch. And boom, uppercut.
And again, Director Comey, thank you for your service and your comments to your FBI family.
KO.
That was
Know
easy.
that there are some in the administration who have tried to smear your reputation. You had acting
Oh
Director
shit. A
McCabe
red crate.
in public testimony a few weeks back and in public
Shotgun.
testimony yesterday reaffirm that the vast majority of the FBI community
Shotgun.
have great trust in your leadership and obviously trust in your integrity.
Round 1.
I want to go through a number of the
Fight.
meetings that you referenced in your testimony. And let's start with the January 6th meeting in Trump Tower,
Oh
where
shit.
you went up with a series of officials to brief the president on the Russia investigation. My understanding is you remained afterwards to brief him on, again, quote, some personally sensitive aspects of the information. Now you said after that briefing, you
KO.
felt compelled
Yo,
to
this big old
document
monster's
that
like a 1-2 punch.
conversation.
He's like, hi-ya-ya.
As soon as you got into the car. Now, you've had extensive experience at the Department of Justice and at the FBI. You've worked under presidents of
shit,
both
bitch.
parties. What was it about that meeting that led you to determine that you needed to start putting down a written record?
KO.
A combination of things. I think the circumstances, the subject matter, and the person I was interacting with.
Gaius. We call him Gaius
First,
from
I was
now on.
alone with the President of the United States, and the President-elect, soon to be President. The subject matter, I was talking about matters that touch on the FBI's core responsibility and that relate to the President-elect personally, and then the nature of the person.
Si insistes.
I mean,
Yes,
honestly,
faster speed. I
Ron
love
didn't
faster
lie
speed.
about the nature of our meeting,
Fight.
and so I thought it really important to document.
Oh, I blocked your shit with a
Combination of
freaking...
things I'd never experienced
with a kick,
before,
bitch.
But
Or
it led
the-
me to believe I gotta write it down.
Oh,
and I gotta write it down in a really detailed way.
I think that's a very important statement you just made. And my understanding is that then, again, unlike you're dealing with the presidents of either party's experience, in every subsequent meeting or conversation with this president, you created a written record. Did you feel that you needed to create this written
Round
record
two.
of these memos because they might be relied on at some future date?
Sure, I created records after conversations, and I think I did it after each of our 9 conversations. If I didn't, I did it for nearly all of them, especially the ones that were substantive. I knew that there might come a day when I
Whoa.
would need a record.
Suck it
of
now,
what had
bitch.
happened. Not just to defend myself, but to defend the FBI and our integrity as an institution.
Promoted to second dan.
Independence of our investigative function. That's what made this so difficult. Is it was a combination of circumstances, subject matter, and the particular person.
And so in all your experience, this was
Nice.
the only president that you felt like in every meeting you needed to document because at some point, using your words, he might put out a non-truthful representation of that meeting.
Yeah.
Now,
That's right, Senator. And I, as I said in my written testimony, as FBI director, I interacted with President Obama, and I spoke only twice in 3
Next
years,
battle.
and didn't document it. When I was Deputy Attorney General, I had one-on-one meeting with President Bush about a very important and difficult national security matter. I didn't write a memo documenting that conversation either. I sent a quick email to my staff to let them know there was something going
Round
on.
one.
But I didn't feel with President Bush the
Fight.
need to document it. Again, because the combination
Oh,
of
come
those
on.
factors just wasn't present in either President Bush or President Obama.
I think that is very significant. I think others will probably question that. Now, our
He
chairman
really
and I
is
have
like
requested
a
those
retaliatory
memos.
movement.
I hope that the FBI will get this committee access to those memos so that, again,
I'm noticing with
we
this
can
game, you gotta
read that
really learn to
contemporaneous
Counter-Strike.
rendition so that we got your side of the story.
Oh shit.
Now, I know members have said, and press have said, that
KO.
Nice. Yeah, you
But
gotta
you-
learn how to
the
Counter-Strike in this
President, you
game.
were asked to
If you don't know how to Counter-Strike,
indicate
you're
whether
fucked.
the president was the subject of any investigation. And my understanding is prior to your meeting on January 6th,
Oh shit.
you discussed with your leadership
Shit.
whether or not you should be prepared to assure then President Trump that the FBI was not investigating him personally. Well, my understanding is your leadership team
Shit.
agreed with that. Was that unanimous?
Fuck this nigga. And that's an epic win. Goodbye.
Leadership idea that although it was technically true, we did not have a counterintelligence file.
Promoted
based
to
on
third dan.
President-elect Trump, his concern was because we're
And I got
looking
good
at
boxes.
potential. Again, that's the subject of the investigation.
Oh,
Coordination between the campaign and Russia, because it was
toothy
President
grin
Trump,
helmet
President Trump's
saved
campaign.
for a while
This
ride.
person's view was inevitably his behavior, his conduct will fall within the scope of that work, and so he was reluctant to make the statement that I made. I disagreed. I thought it was fair to say
Round
what was
one.
literally true. There is not a
Fighting
counterintelligence
that dude again?
of Mr. Trump, and I decided in the moment to say it should be our conversation.
This nigga
At
wants to
that
fight.
moment in
Like,
time, did you ever revisit that as in the subsequent sessions?
With the FBI leadership team, sure.
Yeah, you ain't shit now, huh, ain't you?
The leader had that view, it didn't change. His view was still that it was probably,
Oh,
although literally true, his concern was it could be misleading because the nature of the investigation was such that
Suck
it
it,
might well
bitch.
touch, obviously it would touch the campaign, and the person at the head of the campaign would be the candidate. And so that was his view throughout.
Let me move to the January 27th dinner.
oh.
where
I
you
got
said,
you.
quote, the president began by asking me whether I wanted
Ah.
to stay on as FBI director.
Boom.
He also indicated that
Suck
lots of
it.
people
All right,
in the
what are
West
some other
wanted
combos
the
that I
job.
got here?
You go on to say that the dinner itself was seemingly an effort to, quote, have you ask him
Oh, that was
for
that
your
the
job
crazy knuckle
and
combo.
create some sort of,
Okay.
quote unquote, patronage relationship. The president
That's what it was. Fucking hell.
seems, from my reading of the memo,
Boom, boom, bitch.
your job or your possibility of continuing in your job over your head. And if
Yeah, I
there
know.
are
Block right now. Boom.
What was your impression, and what did you mean by the patronage relationship?
My impression. And again, it's my impression. My common sense told
Goodbye.
me that what was going on is he had concluded, or someone had told him, that you've already asked Comey to stay, and you didn't get anything for it. And that the dinner was an effort to build a relationship,
Regular Boxu.
specifically, of loyalty in the context of asking me to stay. As I said, what was odd about that is we'd already talked twice about it by that point, and he'd said, I very much hope you'll stay. I hope you'll stay. In fact, I just remembered sitting here, a third one, when you've seen the picture of me walking across the blue room, and the president whispered in my ear was, I really look forward to working with you. So after those encounters,
And that was just a few days before you.
yeah, that was on the 20th, Sunday after the inauguration. The next Friday, I have dinner, and the president begins by wanting to talk about my job. And so I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, 3 times you've already asked me to stay or talked about me staying. My common sense, again, I could be wrong, but my common sense told me what's going on here is that he's looking to get something in exchange for granting my request to stay in the job.
Again, we all understand, I was a governor, I had people work for me, but this constant request, again, quoting you, him saying, despite your saying your independence, going back to the you ever had any of those kind of requests before from anyone else?
No. And what made me uneasy was, I'm, at that point, the director of the FBI. The reason that Congress created a 10-year term is so that the director is not feeling as if they're serving with political loyalty owed to any particular person. The statute of justice has a blindfold on, because you're not supposed to be peeking out to see whether your patron is pleased or not with what you're doing. It should be about the facts and the law. That's why I became FBI director, to be in that kind of position. So that's why I was so uneasy.
Well, let me move on.
Oh my God, those are okay, so that power punch, I cannot fucking block. That's
The
insane.
direct superior, the attorney general, was in that meeting as well. Yet the president asked everyone,
shit!
including the attorney general, to leave before he brought up the matter of General Flynn. What was your impression of that type of action? Had you ever seen anything like that?
Dude,
My impression was
love
something
this
big was
fucking
about to
game.
happen.
I
need to
love
remember
the
every single
fucking
word
fighting
spoken.
system. I like that
And
there's like
again,
combos, but
I
it's
could be wrong.
really
I'm
like you
56
gotta
years
figure
old.
out how
I've
to
been-
counterattack
I've
and
seen a few
shit.
things. My sense was the attorney general knew he shouldn't be leaving, which is why he was lingering.
Next,
And I don't know
batter.
Mr. Kushner well, but I think he picked up on the same thing. And so I knew something was about to happen that I needed to pay very
This fat
close
fuck.
attention to.
And I found it very interesting that in the memo
This fat look.
that you wrote after his February 14th policy,
Okay.
you made clear that you wrote that memo in a way that was unclassified. If you affirmatively made the decision to write a memo that was unclassified,
Oh shit.
was that because you felt at some point facts that needed to come through and come clear and actually be able to coordinate
My
and share
nigga.
with the American
Yeah, now we back.
Well, I remember thinking this is a very disturbing development, really important
Yeah,
for
trill it.
our work. I need
gonna
to
keep
document it and
Round
preserve it in a
2.
way,
That's
right.
Fight.
and committee gets this, but sometimes when things are classified, it tangles up. It's hard to share it within an investigative team. You have to be very careful, but hey, handle it for good reason. So my thinking was, if I write it in such a way that
He
I
keeps
don't
ducking.
include
That's what it
anything that will trigger a classification, that'll make it easier for us to discuss within the FBI and the government, and to hold on to it in a way that makes it accessible to us.
But again, it's our hope, particularly since you're
There we
a
go.
knowledgeable guy and you wrote this in a way that was unclassified, that this committee would have access to that unclassified document. I think it would be very important for our investigation. Let me just ask this in closing.
red box.
How many ongoing investigations at any time does the FBI have?
Airbrush, bro.
Tens of
Promotional
thousands.
match.
Tens of thousands.
Oh,
Did
Jesus
the president ever
Christmas.
ask about any other ongoing
Oh, I'm
investigations?
playing his Geiges this time, so I might be able to fuck her up.
He ever asked about you trying to interfere
Let's do it,
in
bitch.
any other investigation?
Fight.
No.
I think, again, it speaks volumes as we
Oh,
get
shit.
to the questions around
on, get up.
the phone calls about lifting the cloud. I know other members will get to that, but I really appreciate your testimony and appreciate your explanation.
Thank you, Senator. You know, it just sitting here going through my contacts, and I had
Grab her ass! Goddamn!
It was classified, where he asked about
Oh, got her! Yeah, savage!
intelligence investigation. It was brief and entirely professional.
But he didn't ask you to take any
I
specific
KO'd Kazumi.
unlike what he had done vis-a-vis Mr. Flynn and the overall Russian investigation.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Rich.
Thank you very much. Mr. Comey, thank you for your service. America needs more like you. And I
Shit.
really appreciate it.
Come on,
Yesterday,
fuck off.
thank God,
Aye, with your fucking tiger bullshit.
7 pages of your great testimony that's now part of the
Oh!
First, I read it, then I read it again. And
Love
all I
that
could
for a little
think was
fucking equalizer, bitch.
how much I hated the class of legal writing when I was in law school. And you were the guy that probably got the A.
Yes, I think Kazumi was
I
fucking
find it
genius.
clear, I find it concise.
Mentor.
And having been a prosecutor for a number of years and handling hundreds, maybe thousands of cases and
I
read police
beat
reports,
fucking
investigative reports,
Kazooie.
this is as good
Ortigas.
as it gets, and I really appreciate that. Not only
Rainbow for
not
all?
only the conciseness
Okay.
and the clearness of it, but also the fact that you have
More battles? Okay.
things that were written down contemporaneously when they happened, and you actually put them in quotes, so we know exactly what happened, and we're not getting some rendition of it that's in your mind. So,
Thank you.
so you're to be complimented.
I had great parents and
That
great
outfit,
teachers
though.
who beat that into me.
That's obvious. The chairman walked you through a number of things that
Oh,
the American
bitch.
people need to know and want to know. Number one, obviously, we all know
Come on.
about the active measures that were being taken. I think a lot of people were
Get away from me,
surprised
bitch.
at this. Those of us who work in the intelligence community it didn't come as a surprise. But
Oh, shit,
now
it's
the
gonna be
American
mad
people
now.
know this, and it's good they know this because this is serious and it's a problem. I think secondly,
Oh, shit.
I gather from all
Oh,
of this
fuck.
that you're
And I got
going
you now,
to say
bitch.
now that while you were correct, the President of the United States is not an investigation. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
So that's a fact that we can rely on.
I love that he fucking just drops her on her
I
skull.
remember you talked with us
Round
shortly
2.
after February 14th when the New York Times wrote an article that suggested that the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians. You remember reading that article when it first came out?
I do. It was about allegedly extensive electronic surveillance. of
Correct.
Communications.
And that upset you to the point where you actually went out and surveyed the intelligence to see whether you were
Suck
missing
that shit,
something in
bitch.
that. Is that correct?
Correct. I want to be careful and open.
Block it, bitch.
I'm not going to go any further.
Oh!
So thank you.
Suck that shit. You're done.
In addition to that, after that,
Blocked
you
your
sought
art.
out both
Block
Republican
your
and
rage
Democrat
mode.
senators
Whatever you're gonna
to
do.
tell them that, hey, I don't know where this is coming from, but this is not the case. This is not factual. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Hypnotic classes for all.
So again, so the American people can understand this, that report by the New York Times was not true. Is that a fair
A
statement?
promotional match from
In the main, it was
Mentor?
not true. And again,
Round
all
All
of
right.
you know this, the American people don't.
Oh, no, I'm
The
Dan,
challenge,
okay.
I'm not picking on reporters.
No, no,
I'm
I'm- yeah,
saying about
Mentor.
classified
For
information
fuck's sake,
is
mate.
the people talking about it often don't really know what's going on, and those of us who actually know what's going on are not talking about it. And we don't call the press to say, hey, you got that thing wrong about this sensitive topic. We just have to leave it there. To mention the chairman, the nonsense around
Oh, shit.
what influenced me to make the July 5th date. Nonsense, but I can't go explaining how it's nonsense.
Thank you. All right, so those three things we now know.
That's fucking
regarding
one
the
round,
active
man.
measures with the president's under investigation and the collusion between
Round
the
2.
Russian, the Trump campaign and the Russians. I want to drill right down, as my time is limited, to the most recent dust-up regarding allegations that the President of the United States obstructed justice. And boy, you nailed this down on page 5, paragraph 3.
Oh!
You put this in quotes. Words matter. You wrote down the words so we can all have the words in front of us. There's 28 words there that are in
Oh, he's
quotes, and
done.
this is quote.
I am
hope-
now above Mentor.
This is the president speaking. I hope you can see your way clear to
Expert.
letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He is a good guy.
Goddamn right I'm an
I
expert.
hope you can let
That's
this
right.
go. Now, those are his exact words. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you wrote them here and you put them in quotes.
Correct.
Thank you for that. He did not direct you to let it go.
You gotta focus.
Not in his words, no.
Damn, she
He
got
did
some big
not
ass
order you
titties.
to let it go.
Fight.
Again, those words are not in order.
He said, I hope. Now, like me, you probably did hundreds of cases, maybe thousands of cases, charging people with criminal offenses. And of course, you have knowledge of the thousands of cases out there where people can charge. Do you know of any case where a person has been charged
damn, she's got me,
obstruction of justice?
Oh, fuck,
For that
she's got my
matter, any other
oh, no, get up!
criminal offense?
No, motherfucker, yes!
Case said,
No! Fuck.
I don't know well enough to answer. And the reason I keep saying his words is, I took it as a
Oh, she's a
directive.
goddamn
I
grandmaster.
mean, this is the President of the United States, with me alone, saying, I hope he does. I took it as, this is what he wants me to do. Now, I didn't obey that, but that's what
No, grab her
you may have
ass.
taken
God
this
damn
direction,
it.
but that's not what
Don't
he
grab her
said.
ass.
Correct.
Fuck it out.
He said, I hope.
Fuck it out, mate.
those are exactly correct.
You don't know of anyone that's ever been charged for hope.
Got her.
That's a fair statement.
I don't, as I said.
Now we're back to square one, bitch.
Mr. Chairman, Mr.
Final
Comey, I
round.
just want you to know that I have great
Fight.
respect for you. Senator Cornyn and I
Boom,
sit on
bah.
the Judiciary Committee, so
Come on,
we
bitch.
have occasion to have you before us. And I know that you're a man of strength and integrity. And I
Shit.
really regret the situation that we all find ourselves in. I just want to say that.
Shit.
Let me begin with one overall.
Yes!
Why do you believe
I beat a grandmaster.
I don't know for sure. I
Two
believe
boxes.
I think the president had his word that I was
Two
fired
red boxes,
because
too.
of the Russia investigation. Something about the way I was conducting it, the
Bamboo
president
shoot
felt
for all. I think I already
created
had that.
pressure on him that he wanted to release. Again, I didn't know that at the time.
Just so
but I
many items.
Watched
God
his
damn.
interview. I've read the press accounts of his conversations, so I take him at his word there. Now look, I could be wrong. Maybe he's saying something that's not true, but I
Round
take him
one.
at his word, at least based on what I know
Fight.
Talk for a moment about his request that you pledge loyalty
Whoa, bitch.
and your response to that.
My dude's
and
crazy
what
here.
impact you believe that had.
He's attacking the fucking air.
now. I don't know for sure, because I don't know the president well enough to read him well. I think it was
Fuck you, savage.
It did off to a great start during the conversation I had
Get
to
it,
have
I got
on
it.
January 6th. This
Oh,
was not,
I was doing the freaking
this didn't
the
improve the relationship.
the move, but he wouldn't do
because
it.
It was very, very awkward. He was
got the
asking
win,
for
though.
something and I was
Round
refusing
two.
to give it.
Now she's fucked.
Fight.
But again, I don't know him well enough to know how he reacted to that exactly.
Do you believe the Russia investigation played a role?
And why I was fired? Yes. The president say so.
Let's go to the Flynn issue. Senator Reid outlined,
Oh!
I hope you could see your way to letting Flynn go. He's a good
Bring it,
guy.
bitch.
I hope
Come
he
on now,
does
bring it,
well.
bitch.
But you also
Bring it,
said
bitch.
in your written remarks, and I quote,
2 more
that you
beats.
had understood the president to be requesting that we drop any investigation of Flynn in
Let me
connection
just do
with
something real
false
quick here. Let me
statements
log out
about
on
his conversations
Simon.
with
Apparently,
the
I'm
Russian
logged in as
ambassador
Bobo
in December,
Palace
end quote.
on
Please
my
go
laptop
into
here, and I
that
need to
with
be
more
logged in as
detail.
Bobo's Place.
Well, the context and the president's words are what led me to that conclusion. As I said in my statement, I could be wrong, but Flynn had been forced to resign the day before. And the controversy around General Flynn at that point in time was centered on whether he had lied to the vice president
Oh,
about
I got another
the nature of
flag.
his conversations with the Russians.
Man,
whether
I could
he
just,
had
like,
been,
keep going.
candid with others in the course of that. And so that happens on the day before. On the 14th, the president makes specific reference to that. And so that's why I understood him to be saying that what he wanted me to do was drop any investigation connected to Flynn's account of his conversations with the Russians.
Now, here's the question. You're big, you're strong. I know the Oval Office, and I know what happens to people when they walk in. There is a certain amount of intimidation. But why didn't you stop and say, Mr. President, this is wrong. I cannot discuss this with you.
It's a great question. Maybe if I were stronger, I would have. I was so stunned by the conversation that I just took it in. And the only thing I could think to say, because I was playing in my mind, because I could remember every word he said, I was playing in my mind, what should my response be? And that's why I very carefully chose the words. And look, I've seen the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope they're tapes. I remember saying, I agree he's a good guy, as a way of saying I'm not agreeing with what you just asked me to do. Again, maybe other people would be stronger in that circumstance, but that's how I conducted myself. I hope I'll never have another opportunity. Maybe if I did it again, I would do it better.
You described 2 phone calls that you received from President Trump, one on March 30 and one on April 11, where he, quote, described the Russia investigation as a cloud that was impairing his ability, end quote, as president, and asked you, quote, to lift the cloud, end quote. How did you interpret that? And what did you believe he wanted you to do?
I interpreted that as he was frustrated that the Russia investigation was taking up so much time and energy. I think he meant of the executive branch, but in the public square in general, and it was making it difficult for him to focus on other priorities of his. But what he asked me was actually narrower than that. So I think what he meant by the cloud, and again, I could be wrong, but what I think he meant by the cloud was the entire investigation is taking up oxygen and making it hard for me to focus on the things I want to focus on. The ask was to get it out that I, the president, am not personally under investigation.
After April 11th, did he ask you more ever about the Russia investigation? Did he ask you any questions?
We never spoke again after April 11th.
You told the president, I would see what we could do. What did you mean?
That was kind of a slightly cowardly way of trying to avoid telling him we're not going to do that, that I would see what we could do. It was a way of kind of getting off the phone, frankly. And then I turned and handed it to the acting Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Bente.
So I wanted to go into that. Who did you talk with about that, lifting the cloud, stopping the investigation back at the FBI, and what was their response?
Well, the FBI, during one of the 2 conversations, I'm not remembering exactly, I think the first, my chief of staff was actually sitting in front of me and heard my end of the conversation because the president's call was a surprise. And I discussed the lifting the cloud and the request with the senior leadership team, who typically, and I think in all these circumstances, was the deputy director, my chief of staff, the general counsel, the deputy director's chief counsel, and I think in a number of circumstances, the number 3 in the FBI, and a few of the conversations included the head of the National Security Branch. So that group of us that lead the FBI when it comes to national security.
Okay, you have the President of the United States asking you to stop an investigation that's an important investigation.
Now my spoke.
What
Whoa.
was the response of your colleagues?
Okay.
Round
I
1.
think they were as shocked and troubled by it as I was. Some said things that led me to believe that, I don't know exactly, but the reaction was similar to mine. They're all experienced people who had never experienced it.
Okay,
Very
bitches.
concerned. And then the conversation turned to, so what should we do with this information? And that was the struggle for us.
Oh shit. Do it.
We are the leaders of the FBI, so
Boom,
it's important
bitch.
to us, and that I heard it and I shared it with the leaders of the FBI. Should we share this with any senior officials at the Justice Department? Our absolute primary concern was
Round
we can't
2.
infect the investigative
Fight.
team. We don't want the agents and analysts working on this to know the President of the United States has asked, when it comes to the President,
Oh,
I took it as a
suck it,
directive,
bitch.
to get rid
shit.
of this investigation because we're not going to follow that request. And so we decided we got to keep it away from our troops. But is there anybody else we ought to tell at the Justice Department? As I laid out in my
Got
statement,
him.
we considered whether
Got that
the
special
Attorney
move.
General decided
That
that
special
didn't make
item.
sense because we believed rightly that he was shortly going to recuse. There were no other Senate-confirmed leaders in the Justice Department at that point. The Deputy Attorney General was Mr. Bente, who was acting and going to be shortly in that seat.
I got the
We
legs.
decided the best move would be to hold
I didn't
it,
get the fucking upper
keep it in
body.
a box, document it as we'd already
Guess I gotta
done.
keep fighting for that upper
When
body.
this investigation is going to go on, figure out what to do with it down the road. Is there a way to corroborate
Sí,
this? Our view at the time
Round
was, look,
1.
it's your word against the president's.
Fight.
There's no way to corroborate this. My view of that changed when the prospect of tapes was raised.
Boom,
But
bitch.
that's how we thought about it then.
Thank you.
Oh, shit. And like that, he ties it up.
The meeting in the Oval Office where he made the request about Mike Flynn, was that the only time he asked you to hopefully let it go?
Yes.
And in that meeting, as you understood it, that
Boom!
was asking not about the general election.
This may kill him?
He was asking very specifically about the jeopardy.
Nope.
That's how I understood it.
Got
And
him.
you perceived it, while it was a request that you hoped you did away
Round
with it,
two.
you perceived it as
Yes.
an order,
Fight.
given his position, his setting, and the like, and some of the circumstances.
Yes.
At the time, did you say anything to the president about that is not an appropriate request, or did you tell the White House counsel that is not an appropriate request? Someone needs to go tell the president that you can't do these things? Why?
I don't know. I think as I said earlier, I think the circumstances were such that I was a bit stunned, didn't have the presence of mind, and I don't know. I don't want to.
I'm no longer an expert. I'm now a grandmaster.
I don't know whether you're.
I'm a grandmaster with fucking-
That's wrong. I don't know whether I would have. But in the
Geekus,
moment,
Jesus.
it didn't come to my mind. What came to my mind is be careful what you say, and so I said I
This game
agree.
was
Flynn is a
great.
good guy.
So on the cloud, we keep talking about this cloud. You perceive the cloud to be the Russian investigation in general.
Yes, sir.
But his specific ask
Round
was
one.
that you would tell the American people that you
Fight.
had already told the leaders of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, that he was not personally under investigation. In fact, he was asking you to do what you have done here today.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And again, at that point, did you say to the president
I love that, like,
it would be inappropriate
his
to
moves
do
are
so,
all
and
just
then
like-
talk to the White House
Fight.
counsel or anybody, so hopefully they would talk to him and tell
Like,
him.
his moves are dumb simple to do. They're
First time I
powerful.
said, I'll see what
But
we
he's
can do. Second time, I explained how it should work, that the White House counsel should contact the Deputy Attorney General.
You told
The
him that.
President said, okay, I think that's what I'll do.
And just to be clear, for you to make a public statement that he was not under investigation would not have been that you
Got
felt
him.
it made no sense because it could potentially be incorrect circumstances.
Yes, sir. We wrestled with it before my testimony where I confirmed that there was an investigation, and there were two primary concerns. One was it creates a duty to correct, which I've lived before, and you want to be very careful about doing that. And second, it's a slippery slope because if we say the president and the vice president aren't under investigation, what's the principled basis for stopping?
Okay.
And so the leadership at Justice, acting Attorney General Bente, said you're not going to do that.
Now, on March 30th, during the phone call about General Flynn, you said he abruptly shifted and brought up something that you call, quote unquote, the McCabe thing. Specifically, the McCabe thing, as you understood it, was that McCabe's wife had received campaign money from what I assume means Terry McAuliffe.
Oh shit, we got a
Yeah,
special
was
fight
very
here.
close to the Clintons.
Fight.
And so
She's only fourth
why
down
did-
though.
had the
Like, why the hell am I
president
fighting
at any
her?
point in time expressed any concern, opposition, potential opposition to McCabe? I don't like this guy because he got money from someone who's close to Clinton.
He had asked me during previous conversations about Andy McCabe and said, in essence, how's he going to be with me as president? I was pretty rough on him on the campaign trail.
He was rough on McCabe.
He was rough, by his own account, he said he was rough on McCabe and Mrs. McCabe on the campaign trail. How's he going to be? And I assured the
This
president,
dude's a
Andy's
straight
a total
brawler.
pro.
Fight.
But I need
no
more
issue at all. You got to know the people of the FBI. They are not.
So,
Uh,
so then the president turns to you and says, remember, I
Oh,
never
wow.
brought up the McCabe thing because you said he was a good guy. Did you perceive that to be a statement
Quick
that
headbutt is-
I took
okay.
care of you, I didn't do something because you told me he was a good guy,
wow.
so now I'm going to potentially
Oh,
do something
shit.
in return. Is that how you perceived it?
I wasn't sure what to make of it, honestly. That's possible, but it
What the hell is
was
that?
so out of context that I didn't have a clear view of what it was.
Now, on a number
Oh,
of
I'm gonna have to
occasions
fuck with
you
that.
bring up, let's talk now about the general Russia investigation, okay? Page 6
Yeah.
of your testimony, you say,
Turn this around.
First
Boom!
he asked what we could do to quote-unquote lift the cloud from general Russia investigation. And you responded that we were investigating the matter and that there would be
Yo!
great
I
benefit
came back and
if we
fucking
didn't find
still
anything
won.
that hasn't been done to work well. And he agreed. He re-emphasized the problems it was causing him, but he agreed. So in essence, the president agreed with your statement
shit.
that it would be great if we could have an investigation, all the facts came out, and we found nothing. So he agreed that that would be ideal, but this
Damn,
cloud
man,
is still messing up my
mad
ability to
right
do the
now.
rest of my agenda. Is that an accurate assessment of?
Yes, sir. He actually went farther than that. He said, and if some of my satellites did something wrong, it'd be good to find
Nice,
that
I got a
out.
rare
Well,
item.
that's the second part, and that is
Round
the satellites.
one.
He said if one of my satellites,
Fight.
I imagine by that he meant somebody took my around
Shit.
and did something wrong, it would be great to know that as well.
Yes, sir. That's what he said.
So are those the only two instances in which that sort of back and forth happened, where the president was basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's okay, do the Russia investigation, I hope it all comes out, and had nothing to do with anything Russian. It would be great if it all came out, that people around me were doing things that were wrong.
As
Nice.
I recorded it accurately there, that was definitely his trust. Yes, sir.
So what it bears it comes down to is the president has asked
Oh, kick to the gut sends him flying.
Two. Honestly loyal.
honestly loyal. He asked you on one occasion to let the microphone go because he was a good guy. Oh, you were aware that he said the exact same thing the next day. He's a good guy, he's been treated unfairly, et cetera, et cetera. So I imagine the FBI agents read that. The president's wishes were known to them, certainly by the next day when he had the president.
Boom.
Going back.
Yeah, now I get one of his items. Hopefully it's the upper body.
Be loyal. Number two, let the Mike Flynn thing go. He's a good
Give me that
guy.
box,
He's been treated
bitch.
unfairly. And number three, can you please tell the American
It
people
is the upper body.
what these leaders in Congress already know, what you already know, what you told me 3 times, that I'm
My
not
dude's
under
a fucking
personally
straight
under
murderer.
investigation.
Those are the 3 things he asked. Yes, sir.
You know, this investigation is full of leaks
What do you
left
do,
and right,
Monica?
and we learn more from the newspapers
Round
sometimes
one.
than we do from our
I ain't gonna
open
find out
hearings.
shit, bitch, because I'm all that bam, boom, bitch.
You ever wonder why, of all the things
Come
in
on,
this
bitch.
investigation, the only thing that could have been leaked is
Oh, you
the
think
fact
you
that the
got
president
boom,
was not personally under
boom,
despite the fact
boom,
that both Democrats and Republicans and the leadership of Congress knew that and have known that for weeks.
I don't know. I find matters that are briefed to the Gang of 8 are pretty tightly held. in my
Oh,
experience.
bah.
Finally, who are those senior leaders of the FBI that you shared with?
In response to Senator Feinstein's question, Deputy Director, Chief of Staff, General Counsel, Deputy
Round
Directors,
two.
Chief Counsel, and then
Fight.
more often than not, the number 3 person at the FBI who's the Associate Deputy Director, and then quite often the head of the National Security Branch.
Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Advancing
Mr. Comey,
giant process.
welcome.
Oh, so
You and
Goliath
I
is a
have
move.
had
It sets up the move.
significant
Okay.
policy differences over the years, particularly protecting Americans' access
Oh,
to secure
shit!
encryption. But I believe
Okay.
the timing of firing.
Oh, so you have to, like, kind of get, like, some speed going. Okay.
Yesterday,
That's
you
dope
put
as
on
fuck.
the record testimony that demonstrates
No, he threw
why
off my fucking
the
grab.
of
Fuck you,
presidential
bitch.
use of power is so strong. Now to my question. Talking to Senator Warner about this dinner he had with the president. All in one dinner, the president raised your job prospects. He asked for your loyalty and denied allegations.
I may actually be unstoppable
against
with fucking Gigas.
all took place over one supper. Now, you told Senator Warner that the president was looking to, quote, get something. Looking back, did that dinner
A promotion.
suggest
Oh,
that your
shit.
job
I'm
might be
Grandmaster. What the fuck is
contingent
left?
on how you handle
God?
the
Round
investigation?
1. Fight.
I don't know that I go that far. I got the sense my job would be contingent upon how he felt excuse me, how he felt I conducted myself, whether I demonstrated loyalty. I don't know whether I go so far as to.
You said the
Shit.
president was trying to create some sort of relationship.
Oh, super kick to the gut.
Round
Expected to
2.
behave in a manner
Fight.
consistent with the wishes of the boss.
Yes. Or at least consider how what you're doing will affect the boss. Significant consideration.
Let me turn to the Attorney General. In your statement, you said that you and the FBI leadership team decided not to discuss the president's actions in Attorney General session, even though he had not
KO.
recused himself.
So I am no longer Grandmaster. I am a brawler.
Own interactions
Dude.
with the Russians, or his behavior with regard to the investigation that would have led the entire leadership of the FBI to make this decision.
I feel like I might
Our
actually...
judgment is that he
Yo!
was very close to and inevitably going
I've already
to
fought this
recuse
bitch once
himself
before through this playthrough.
for a variety of reasons. We also were aware of facts that I can't discuss in an open setting that would make his continued engagement in a Russia-related investigation problematic, and so we were convinced. In fact, I think we'd already heard that the career people were recommending that he recuse himself, that he was not going to be in contact with Russia-related matters much longer, and that turned out to be the case.
How would you characterize Attorney General Sessions' adherence to his in particular with regard to his involvement in your fight, which the president...
I assume he's hard. I assume he's definitely hard.
Russian investigation.
God damn it.
That's a question I can't answer. I think it's a reasonable question. If, as the president said, I was fired because of the Russia investigation, why was the Attorney General involved in that chain? I don't know. And so I don't have an answer for the question.
Your testimony was that the president's request about Flynn
get up.
could affect the investigation.
Oh, this might really fuck her up. This might kill her, actually. Yes!
So we would have closed any investigation of General Flynn in connection with his statements about encounters with Russia.
My dude wants to fuck around and shit.
In December. We would have dropped and opened a criminal investigation.
So, in the session, you talked about infecting the enterprise, drop something major that would have spoken to the overall ability of the American people to get the facts.
Correct. And as good as our judgment is hearing that the President of the United States wants this to go away.
Holy shit, I beat her a second time.
Now, the acting Attorney General...
I'm gonna have to, like, sit for a second.
Yates found out that Michael Flynn could be blackmailed by the Russians, and she went immediately to warn the White House.
Second time.
Flynn is gone, but other individuals with contacts with the Russians are still in extremely important positions of power. Should the American people have the same sense of urgency now with respect to that?
I think all I can say, Senator, is the special counsel's investigation is very important. Understanding what efforts there were or are by the Russian government to influence our government is a critical part of the FBI's mission.
God, I really like this game.
You've got the right person in Bob Mueller to lead it, so it's
still
very
going
important
too. That's the crazy thing.
Vice President Pence was the head of the transition. To your knowledge, was he aware of the concerns about Michael Flynn prior to or during General
Oh shit! Yo, he had me before it's a fight.
You're asking, including up to the time when Flynn was forced to resign? My understanding is that he was, and I'm trying to remember where I get that understanding from. I think from Acting Attorney General Yates.
Come on.
So, former Acting Attorney General Yates testified his concerns about General Flynn's stuff. Would that have included anyone at the CIA or
I'm dumb.
Office, the DNI?
I would assume yes.
Michael Flynn resigned 4 days after Attorney General Sessions was sworn in. Do you know if the Attorney General was aware of concerns about Michael Flynn during that period?
Alright, it's forward, okay.
I don't, as I sit here, I don't recall that he was. I could be wrong, but I don't remember.
I've been trying to figure that one out, and I've been hitting it. It's not hit, it's hold.
Finally,
dumbass.
Let's see if
not reading directions.
Give us some sense of who recommended
wondering why I can't do the moon shit.
Besides the letters from Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General.
Ah, fuck, I'm all distracted and shit now.
Recommended.
I don't.
Senator Collins.
I I spaced out for some
Comey,
reason.
let me begin by thanking you for your voluntary compliance with our request to appear before this committee and assist us in this very important investigation. I want first to ask you about your conversations with the president, the 3 conversations in which you told him that he was not under investigation. The first was during your January 6th meeting, according to your testimony, in which it appears that you actually volunteered that assurance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you limit that statement to counterintelligence investigations, or were you talking about any kind of FBI investigation?
I didn't use the term counterintelligence. I was speaking to him and briefing him about some salacious and unverified material. It was in the context
I've forgotten how many wins I've got at this point.
Round 1.
21 wins.
He had a strong and defensive reaction about that not being true. And my reading of it was important for me to assure him we were not personally investigating him. And so the context then was actually narrower, focused on what I just talked to him about. So it was very important because it was first true.
Oh shit, she's
Second,
gonna grab my ass.
Very
in the
much
middle of the
about
move.
being in kind of a
Oh, and now she's fucking grabbing my ass.
situation. I didn't want him thinking that I was briefing him on this, to sort of hang it over him in some way. I was briefing him because I had been told by the media it was about the law. We wanted to keep it
Yeah,
from him.
I
And
love
there was
those fucking
some-
1-2
He needed
punch
to know this was
combos.
being said. But I was very keen not to leave him with an impression.
Oh shit, she's gonna
that the Bureau was
grab
trying
my
to
ass
do something to him.
fucking immediately.
So that's the context in which I said, sir, we're not personally investigating you.
And then, and that's why you volunteered the information.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Then on the January
Those bitch likes that throw,
27th
too.
dinner, you told the president that he should be careful about
shit.
asking you to investigate.
No, bitch, get up.
Because, quote, you might create a narrative that you were investigating personally, which we weren't. Again, were you limiting that statement to counterintelligence investigations, or
she's that
more
beater.
broadly, such as a
Marauder might be the
Context
next
is
one
very
after
similar.
Brawler.
I didn't modify the word investigation. It was, again, he was reacting strongly again to that unverified material, saying, I'm tempted to order you to investigate it. And that, in the context of that, I said, sir, you want to be careful about that because it might create a narrative we're investigating you personally.
And then there was the March 30th phone call with the president in which you reminded him that congressional leaders have been briefed that we were not personally, the FBI was not personally investigating President Trump. And again, was that statement to congressional leaders and to the president limited to counterintelligence investigations, or was it a broader statement? I'm trying to understand whether there was any kind of investigation of the president underway.
No, I'm sorry. And if I misunderstood, I apologize. We briefed the congressional leadership about what Americans we had opened counterintelligence investigation cases on, and we specifically said the president is not one of those Americans, but that there was no other investigation of the president that we were not mentioning at that time. What the context was counterintelligence, but I wasn't trying to hide some criminal investigation of the president.
And was the president under investigation at the time of your dismissal on May 9?
No.
Non farmi perdere tempo.
I'd like
No,
to
bitch.
now turn
Yo,
to
that
the
mask is dope.
conversations with the president about Michael Flynn, which have been discussed at great length. And first, let me make very clear that the president never should have cleared the room, and he never should have asked you, as you reported, to let it go, let the investigation go. But I remain puzzled by your response. Your response was,
I accidentally just figured out a move.
could have said, Mr. President, this meeting is inappropriate. This response could compromise the investigation. You should not be making such a request.
He's like directly saying, go fuck yourself with my grass.
The FBI be insulated from this kind of pressure. And you talked bit today about that you were stunned by the president making the request. But my question to you is,
Oh, he got. Oh, god damn.
did you
What was
go
that,
to
21,
anyone
22
at
wins?
the Department of Justice and ask them to call the White House counsel's office
Holy
and
shit,
explain
man.
that the
Yo,
president
I just got
had
10
to
extra
have
items.
a far better understanding and appreciation of his role vis-a-vis the FBI.
In general, I did. I spoke to the Attorney General and I spoke to the new Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Rosenstein, when he took office and explained my serious concern about the way in which the President is interacting, especially
That's
with
awesome.
the FBI.
All right, Blair
Specifically, as I said in my
Customization.
testimony,
Now,
I asked told
let's
the Attorney
edit
General, it
Aegis.
can't happen that you get kicked out of the room and the President talks to me.
I can't
Look,
believe
in
I
the
went
room,
21 rounds with
but
Gigas.
why didn't we raise the specific?
Holy shit.
It was
Gigas
of
is the
investigative interest to
motherfucking
us to try and figure out, so what just
man.
happened
Wallline.
with the President's request? So I would not have wanted to alert the White House that it had happened
let me
until
back
we
up real
figured
quick.
out what are we going to do with this investigatively.
Your testimony was that you went to Attorney General Sessions and said, don't ever leave me alone with him again. Are you saying that you also told him that he had made a request that you let it go with regard to part of the investigation of Michael Flynn?
No, I specifically did not. I did not.
You mentioned that from your very first meeting with the president, you decided to write a memo memorializing the conversation. What was it about that very first meeting that made you write a memo when you had not done that with two previous presidents?
As I said, a combination of things. A gut feeling is an important overlay on but the circumstances that I was alone, the subject matter, and the nature of the person that I was interacting with, and my read of that person. And yeah, and really just a gut feel laying on top of all of that, it's going to be important to protect this organization that I make records of this.
And finally, did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And to whom did you show copies?
I asked, President tweeted on Friday after I got fired that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
And was that Mr. Wittes?
No, no.
Who was that?
A good friend of mine who's a professor at Columbia Law School.
Thank you.
Senator Heinrich.
Mr. Comey, prior to January 27th of this year, have you ever had a one-on-one meeting or a private dinner with a president of the United States?
No. I met dinner, no. I had two one-on-ones with President Obama that I laid out in my testimony, once to talk about law enforcement issues, law enforcement and race, which was an important topic throughout for me and for the president, and then once very briefly for him to say goodbye.
Were those brief interactions?
No. The one about law enforcement and race and policing, we spoke for probably over an hour, just the two of us.
How unusual is it to have a one-on-one dinner with the president? Did that strike you as odd?
Yeah, so much so that I assumed there would be others that couldn't possibly be having dinner with me alone.
Do you have an impression that if you had
that's sick.
If you had behaved differently in that dinner, and I'm
I
quite
like that.
pleased that you did not, but if you had found a way to express some sort of expression of loyalty or given some suggestion that the Flynn criminal investigation might be pursued less vigorously, do you think you would have still been fired?
I don't know. It's impossible to say looking back. I don't know.
So you felt like
dope.
those two things were were directly
This
relevant
game
to your,
is fucking
the kind of
great.
relationship that the
Guys,
president was seeking to establish.
whoever
with you.
sees this, just buy the game.
Yes.
The president has repeatedly talked about the Russian investigation into the U.S. Or the Russia's involvement in the U.S. election cycle.
All right,
as
so
a
let's do some more
and
treasure
as
battles,
fake
but let's do it with a
news.
different character.
Can you talk
Actually,
a little
hold on a
bit
second.
about what you saw as
Fine.
FBI director,
Practice.
and
We're talking
obviously
about
only the parts that you
practice,
could
Nick.
share in this setting,
Practice.
that demonstrate how serious this action actually was and why there was an investigation in the first place?
Yes, sir. There should be no fuzz on this whatsoever. The Russians interfered in our election during the 2016 cycle. They did it with purpose, they did it with sophistication, they did it with overwhelming technical
Tournament
efforts,
7.
and it was an active measures campaign driven from the top of that government. There is no fuzz on it. It is a high confidence judgment of the entire
Lucky
intelligence
Chloe.
community, and the members of this committee have seen the intelligence. It's not a close call. That happened. That's about as unfake as you can possibly get, and it's very, very serious, which is why it's so refreshing to see a bipartisan focus on that, because this is about America, not about any particular party.
So that was a hostile act by the Russian government against this country.
Yes, sir.
Did the president, in any of those interactions that you've shared with us today, ask you what you should be doing, or what our government should be doing, or the intelligence community, to protect America against Russian interference in our election system?
I don't recall a conversation like that.
Never.
No.
Do you find it
Not
odd?
not with President Trump.
Right.
Attended a fair number of meetings on that with President Obama.
Whoa.
Do you find it odd
There was
that
a
the
hell of a lot more than I
president
realized.
seemed unconcerned by Russia's actions in our election?
I can't answer that because I don't know what other conversations he had with other advisors or other intelligence community leaders. So I just don't know.
Did you have any interactions with the president that suggested he was taking that hostile action seriously?
I don't remember any interactions with the president other than the initial briefing on January the 6th. Don't remember, could be wrong, but I don't remember any conversation with him at all about that.
As you're very aware, it was only the two of you in the room at that dinner. You told us that the president
Nice.
asked you to
I forgot about
back off
that.
the Flynn investigation. The president told the reporter.
Not in that dinner.
Oh, Jesus
Fair
Christmas.
enough. Told the reporter he did
I can
never
imagine
did
being
that.
unstoppable.
You testified that the president asked for your loyalty in that dinner. The White House denies that. A lot of this comes down to who should we believe. Do you want to say anything as to why we should believe you?
My mother raised me not to say things like this about myself. I'm not gonna. I think people should look at the whole body of my testimony. Because as I used to say to juries, that when I talked about a witness, you can't cherry pick it. You can't say, I like these things he said, but on this, he's a dirty, rotten liar. You got to take it all together, and I've tried to be open and fair, and transparent and accurate. A really significant fact to me is, so why did he kick everybody out of the Oval Office? Why would you kick the Attorney General, the President, the Chief of Staff out to talk to them if it was about something else? And so that to me, as an investigator, is a very significant fact.
And as we look at testimony or communication from both of you, we should probably be looking at consistency.
Well, looking at any witness, you look at consistency, track record, demeanor, record over time, that sort of thing.
So, if
So,
I do...
There are reports that the incoming Trump administration, either during the
All right,
transition
so if I do
and/or after the
pow,
inauguration,
pow.
attempted to set up a sort of
Wait, hold
backdoor
on. Can I
communication
do-
channel with the Russian government
Does that
using
do
their
anything?
infrastructure, their devices or facilities. What would be the risks,
No, it's
particularly
just that.
for a transition, someone not actually in the office of the president yet,
Yeah, it's just
to
that.
setting up unauthorized channels with a hostile foreign
Oh, no,
government,
you can do the other one too,
especially
but it's just the
if they
exact
were
same
to
thing.
evade our own American services.
Oh, shit. So now what the
I'm not
fuck's
going to
the plan?
comment on whether that happened in an open setting. Primary risk is obvious. You spare the Russians the cost and effort of having to break into our communications channels by using theirs. And so you make it a whole lot easier for them to capture all of your conversations, to use those for the benefit of Russia against the United States.
The memos that you wrote, you write all 9 of them in a way that was designed to prevent them needing classification.
No. And on a few of the occasions I sent emails to my chief of staff or others on some of the brief phone conversations that I recall. The first one was a classified briefing. Although it wasn't in a skiff, it was in a conference room at Trump Tower. It was a classified briefing, and so I wrote that on a classified device. The one I started typing in the car, that was a classified laptop that I started working on.
Any reason in a classified environment in a skiff that it would not be appropriate to see those communications, at least from your perspective?
I've been doing ignition coils all the time.
No.
I know I haven't.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator
That's
Blunt.
ignition coil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Comey, when you were terminated at the FBI, I said, and still continue
Bam,
to do,
bam,
that you had
bam,
provided
bam.
service to the country. I also said that I had significant questions over the last year about some of the decisions you made. If the president hadn't terminated your service, would you still be, in your opinion, the director of the FBI today?
Yes, sir.
So you took as a direction from the president something that you thought was serious and troublesome, but continued to show up for work the next day.
Yes, sir.
And 6 weeks later, we're telling the president on
Man,
March the
I really
30th
like you. Guess I'm
that
sorry.
he
I
was
know I
not
keep fucking
personally
on.
the target
Oh,
of
man.
any investigation.
All right, I gotta change.
Correct. On March the 30th, and I think again on April 11th as well, I told them we're not investigating him personally. That was true.
Well, the point to me that concerns me there is that all these things are going on. You now, in retrospect, or at least you now to this committee, that you had serious concerns about what the president had, you believe, directed you to do, and had taken no action, hadn't even reported up the chain of command, assuming you believe there is an up the chain of command, that these things had happened.
So
Do you have a sense of that looking back, that was a mistake?
Boom!
No. In fact, I think no action was the most important thing I could do to make sure there was no interference with the investigation.
And on the Flynn issue specifically, I believe you said earlier that you believe the president was suggesting you drop any investigation of Flynn's account of his conversation with the Russian ambassador, which was essentially misleading the vice president and others.
Correct. And I'm
what
not going to get into the
reaction?
details, but whether there were false statements made to government
Oh
investigators as
shit!
well.
God damn, this dude's got
in
like
its
fucking
suggestion-
1-2 punches for days. This dude's a straight brawler.
General Flynn had violated the Logan Act. I always find pretty incredible.
Bam, bam, bam.
For over 200 years,
No,
nobody's
bitch.
ever been
Bam,
prosecuted.
bam, bam, bam. Bam, bam,
Discussion,
Come here, bitch.
not the problem.
Bam. Come here, bitch.
Misleading
Boom.
investigators or the
Oh,
vice
you don't like
president
that
might
shit?
have been.
Well, bam.
That's fair. Yes, sir.
And
Get over there.
Had you previously, on February the 14th, discussed with the president
Boom.
anything your investigators had learned or their impressions from talking to Flynn?
No, sir.
Paw,
So he
paw, paw.
said
Paw,
he's
paw,
a good
paw.
guy, you said he's a good guy.
Bam.
No
You almost like have to know that you're gonna do that move though.
He said more than that.
It's hard to set up.
The action was, wrote it up, briefed our senior team, tried to figure out what
Nail
to
gun.
do with it, and
Oh,
just
nail
made
gun
a
looks like
decision.
it'd be easy.
We're going to hold this and then see what we make of it down the road. Yes, sir.
Was it your view that not briefing up, you really had no responsibility
Ah,
to report
I don't really like
to
those
the Justice Department in some way?
that kind of shit.
I think at some point, and I don't know what Director Mueller is going to do with it, but at some point,
Shit.
I was sure we were going to brief it to the team in charge of the case. But our judgment was, in the short term, it doesn't make sense to
Are ya?
still fuzz on the fact I reported to the Attorney General. That's why I stressed he shouldn't be kicked out of the room.
Sledgehammer.
But it didn't make sense to report to him now.
You said the Attorney General said, I don't want to be in the room with him alone. Talk to him on the phone. What is the difference in being in the room alone with him and talking to him on the phone alone?
Yeah, I think what I stressed is a little broader than just the room. I said,
She's-
I report to you. It's very important you be between me and the White House.
After that
Gollum,
discussion with
set
the
up.
Attorney General, did you take phone calls from the president?
Yes, sir.
So why didn't you just say you need to talk to, why didn't you say, I'm not taking that call, you need to talk to the Attorney General?
Well, I did on the April 11th call, and I reported the calls, the March 30th call and the April 11th call, to my superior, who was the acting Deputy Attorney General.
I don't want to run out of time here. Let me make one other point. In reading your testimony, January the 3rd,
it really doesn't do
January the
anything.
27th,
It doesn't,
and
like,
March
help
the
it at all.
30th, it appears to me that on all three of those occasions, you, unsolicited by the president,
Looks like it's just
made
like a
the point to
charge for a
him
super hit.
that he was not
Killer
a
impact during
target of
Gollum
of
setup.
an investigation.
Correct, yes, sir.
One, I thought the March
disarming
30th,
Gollum during-
very
oh, that's
interesting.
how-
You said, well, even though you don't want.
Fracturing up,
That was the 27th.
Fracturing up,
Where you said, well,
fracturing up,
we couldn't tell you.
fracturing up,
We couldn't answer the question about you being a target of the
Fracturing
investigation.
up,
You seem to be answering that question.
fracturing up,
Anyhow, as Senator Rubio pointed out,
Fracturing
one
up,
unanswered, unleaked question seems to have been missing
Oh,
in this
man.
whole period
you
of time.
can
You said something earlier I don't want to fail to follow up on. You said after
Crazy
you were
knuckles.
dismissed, you gave information to a friend so that friend could get that information into the public media.
Correct.
What kind of information was that? What kind of information did you give to a friend?
That the Flynn conversation, that the president had asked me to let the Flynn, I'm forgetting my exact own words, but the Flynn conversation in the Oval Office.
So you didn't consider your memo or your sense of that conversation to be a government document, you considered to be somehow your own personal
I like that you can
document you could share
chase
with the
after that
media
shit.
as you wanted to?
Deadly cannon!
My friend.
I understood this to be my recollection
Heavy
recorded
stone.
of my conversation with the president as a private citizen. I felt free to share that. I thought it was very important to get it out.
So were all of your memos
Rusty nail.
that you recorded on classified or other documents, memos that might be yours as a private citizen?
I'm sorry, I'm not following the question.
Well, I think you said you'd use classified.
Oh, yeah, not the classified documents, unclassified. I don't have any of them anymore.
Nice.
I gave them to the special counsel, but yeah, my view was that the content of those unclassified, the memorialization of those conversations was my recollection recorded.
So why didn't you give those to somebody yourself rather than give them through a third party?
Because I was worried the media was camping at the end of my driveway at that point, and I was actually going out of town with my wife to hide, and I worried it would be like feeding seagulls at the beach if it was I who gave it to the media. So I asked my friend, make sure this gets out.
It does seem to me that what you do there is create a source close to the former director of the FBI as opposed to just taking responsibility yourself. You're saying here are these records, and like everybody else, I have other things I'd like to get
This
into,
dude is
but
literally all two-hit combos. This is awesome.
Senator King.
Thank you. First, I'd like to acknowledge Senator Blumenthal and earlier Senator Nelson. I think the one principal compromise, Senator, is that the chairs there are less comfortable than the chairs here. But I welcome you to the hearing.
Charging tackle.
Mr. Comey, a broad question. Was the Russian activity in the 2016 election a one-off proposition, or is this part of a long-term strategy? Will they be back?
Oh, it's a long-term practice of theirs. It stepped up a notch in a significant way in 16. They'll be back.
I think that's very important for the American people to understand that this is very much a forward-looking investigation in terms of how do we understand what they did and how do we prevent it. Would you agree that that's a big part of our role here?
Yes, sir, and it's not a Republican thing or a Democratic thing. It really is an American thing. They're going to come for whatever party they choose to try and work on behalf of, and they're not devoted to either. In my experience, they're just about their own advantage, and they will be back.
That's my observation. I don't think Putin is a Republican.
Nice.
Or a Democrat.
Okay, so there's moves that you can
He's
do
an
when you just
opportunist.
let off the freaking.
That's a fair statement.
When you're like holding down,
with regard to the,
like you're
several of
ducking or
these
whatever, and then if you let
in
off,
his interview with Lester Holt
and then
on
start doing a
NBC,
move?
the president said, I had dinner with him.
So that's
He
not
wanted
like
to have dinner
down,
because
down.
He wanted to
It's
stay on.
off, down.
Is that an accurate statement?
It's completely different. You have to like
Did
let
you
off.
in any way initiate that dinner?
That's awesome.
He called me at my desk at lunchtime and asked me, was I free for dinner that night? and called himself and said, can you come over for dinner tonight? And I said, yes, sir. He said, will 6 work? I think he said 6 first. And then he said, I was going to invite your whole family, but we'll do that next time. I wanted you to come over. Is that a good time? I said, sir, whatever works for you. And then he said, how about 6:30? And I said, whatever works for you, sir. And then I hung up and then called my wife and break a date with her. I was supposed to take her out to dinner that night. And
That's one of the all-time great excuses for breaking.
yeah. In retrospect, I love spending time with my wife. I wish I'd been there that night.
That's one question I'm not going to follow up, Mr. Cohen. But in that same interview, the president said, in one case I called him and in one case he called me. Is that an accurate statement?
Whoa.
No.
Did you ever call the president?
No. I might. The only reason I'm hesitating
shit.
is I think there was at least one conversation where I was asked to call the White House switchboard to be connected to him, but I never initiated a communication with the president.
And in his press conference on May 18th, the president was asked whether he had urged you to shut down the investigation into Michael Flynn. The president responded, quote, no. Next question. Is that it?
I believe it is.
Hold on. I'm going to try that.
Thank you.
All right.
With regard to the question of him being personally under investigation, does that mean that the dossier is not being reviewed or investigated or followed up on in any way?
I obviously can't comment either way. I can't talk in an open setting about the investigation as it was when I was the head of the FBI, and obviously it's Director Bob Mueller's responsibility now, so I don't know.
So clearly your statements to the president back in these various times when you assured him he wasn't under investigation were as of that moment. That's correct, is it?
Correct.
Now, on the Flynn investigation, is it not true that Mr. Flynn was and is a central figure in this entire investigation of the relationship between the Trump campaign and the Russians?
I answer that in an open setting, sir.
Nice.
And certainly Mr. Flynn was part of the so-called Russian investigation.
I have to give you the same answer.
We'll be having a closed session shortly, so we will follow up on that. In terms of his comments to you about his response to
Nice.
Senator Risch, he said, I hope you will hold back on that. But when you get when a president of the United States in the Oval Office says something like I hope, I suggest, or would you?
Nice.
Do you take that as a directive?
Yes. Yes, it rings in my ears kind of, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?
I was just going to quote that in 1170, December 29, Henry II said, who will rid me of this meddlesome priest? And then the next day he was killed. Thomas à Becket. Exactly
Oh, shit. So you can do like...
We're thinking along the same lines. Several other questions, and these are a little bit more detailed. What do you know about the Russian bank VEB?
Nothing that I can talk about in an open setting. I know it.
Oh, shit. That's dope.
Yes, sir.
You know it exists. What is the relationship of ambassador?
Nope, that's not what I want to do.
The ambassador from Russia.
That's not what I want to do.
United States to the Russian intelligence.
Grab her.
Well, he's a diplomat who is the chief of mission of the Russian
That's not what
embassy,
I want to do, but okay.
which
That's what
employs a robust
That's what I want to do.
of intelligence officers.
That's
So
fucking
surely
sick.
he's ridding of their very, very aggressive intelligence operations, at least some of it
Approach
in the United
mid-air
States.
enemy.
I
already know that,
consider
yeah.
him to be an intelligence officer himself. He's a diplomat.
Did the FBI ever brief the Trump administration about the...
Damn, man. This guy's just got moves and moves and moves and moves and moves and moves and moves.
Directly with Ambassador Kislyak.
This is cool. All right.
All I can say sitting here is there were a variety of defensive briefings given to the incoming administration about the counterintelligence risk.
All right, let's do a different character.
Mr. Flynn,
And
would closing out the Flynn investigation have impeded the overall Russian investigation?
No. Well, unlikely, except to the extent, there's always a possibility if you have a criminal case against someone and you bring in and squeeze them, you flip them, and they give you information about something else.
Welcome
But
to the King
I
of
saw the
Iron
two
Fist
as
Tournament 7.
touching each other, but separate.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
with regard to your memos, isn't it true that in a court case, when you're weighing evidence, contemporaneous memos and contemporaneous statements to third parties are considered probative in terms of the validity of testimony?
Yes.
Devil Chin.
Thank you, Mr.
Devil
Chairman.
Chin.
Oh, excuse me, Senator Langford.
Well, Director Comey, good to see you again.
You too.
We've had multiple opportunities to be able to visit, as everyone on this dais has, and I appreciate you and your service and what you have done for the nation for a long time, what you continue to do. I've told you before, in the heat of last year, when we had the opportunity to visit personally, that I pray for you and for your family, because you do carry a tremendous amount of stress, and that is still true today.
Thank you.
Let me walk through a couple things with you. Your notes are obviously exceptionally important because they give a very rapid
Nice, you
account
can wall break
of
these.
what
that's what those. That's
what
what
you
that
wrote
is.
down
Okay,
and
that's
what
cool.
you perceived happened in those different meetings.
Kinder, Jim.
Have you had the opportunity to be able to reference those
Kinder,
notes
Jim,
when you were preparing the written statement that you put for us today?
Yes. Yes. I think nearly all of my written recordings of my conversations I had a chance to review
that
them
arena
before
looks dope.
filing my statement.
Do you have a copy of any of those notes personally?
I don't. I turn them over to Bob Mueller's investigators.
The individual that you told about your memos that then sent on to the New York Times, did they have a copy of those memos, or were they told orally of those memos?
Had a copy. I had a copy at the time.
Do they still have a copy of those memos?
It's a good question. I think so. I guess I can't say for sure sitting here, but
All right, let's see what
I guess I don't know, but I think so.
So the question is, could you ask them to hand that copy right back to you so you could hand them over?
Potentially.
Okay.
I would like to move that from potential to see if we can ask that question, so we can have a copy of those. Obviously, those notes are exceptionally important to us and go through the process, so we can continue to get to the facts as we see it. As you know, the written documents are exceptionally important. Are there other documents that we need to be aware of that you used in preparation for your written statement that we should also have that would assist us in helping with this? Past the February the 14th meeting, which is a very important meeting, obviously, as we discussed.
Oh shit, broke through it.
The conversations here about Michael Flynn. When the president asked you about the hopes that you would let this go, and the conversation back and forth about being a good guy. After that time,
we keep breaking through
did
floors.
the president ever bring up anything about Michael Flynn? You had multiple other conversations you have documented with the president.
No, I don't remember him ever bringing it up.
Did any member of the White House staff ever come to you and talk to you about letting go of the Michael Flynn case, or dropping it, or anything referring to it? Did the Director of National Intelligence come to you and talk to you about that? Did anyone from the Attorney General's office, the Department of Justice, ask you?
I love the destructible fucking shit.
That's
awesome.
Talk to you about that.
No.
The key aspect here is, if this seems to be something the president's trying to get you to drop it seems like a pretty light touch to drop it, to bring it up at that moment, the day after he had just fired Flynn, to come back in and say, I hope we can let this go, but then it never reappears again. Did it slow down your investigation, or any investigation that may or may not be occurring in Michael Flynn?
No, although I don't know there are any manifestations, outward manifestations of the investigation between February 14th and when I was fired. So I don't know that the president would have any way of knowing whether it was effective or not.
Fair enough. If the president wanted to stop an investigation, how would he do that? Knowing it's an ongoing criminal investigation or counterintelligence investigation, would that be a matter of
do that. Yeah, you can see both at the same time.
Say you make it stop because he doesn't have the authority to stop, or how would the president make an ongoing investigation stop?
Again, I'm not a legal scholar, so smarter people answer this better, but I think as a legal matter, the president is the head of the executive branch, could direct, in theory, we have important norms against this, but direct that anybody be investigated or anybody not be investigated. I think he has the legal authority, because all of us ultimately report in the executive branch.
Oh, so wow. So if I
would that be to you? Would that be to the Attorney General? Would that be to who that would do that?
Okay, but then if I do that,
Could do it
it's different.
if you want to issue a direct order, could do it in any way. Could do it through the Attorney General or issue it directly to
But that's like a fucking grab and shit. Wait,
that
what
the
if I
president
actually
is
do a
not
grab?
real fond of this investigation? I can think of
That's kinda
multiple 140-word character expressions that he's done publicly to express he's not fond of the investigations. I've heard you share before in this conversation that you're trying to keep the agents that are working on it away from any comment the president might have made. Quite frankly, the president has informed around 6 billion people that he's not real fond of this investigation. Do you think there's a difference in that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think there's a big difference in kicking superior officers out of the Oval Office, looking the FBI director in the eye and saying, "Oh, we'll let this go." I think if our
that's for your
agents,
enemies that like to block all the goddamn
States
time.
did that, there's a real risk of a chilling effect on their work. That's why we kept it so tight.
You had mentioned before about some news stories and news accounts. Without having to go into all the names at specific times and to be able to dip into all that, have there been news accounts about the Russia investigation, about collusion, about this whole event, or accusations that as you read the story, you were stunned about how wrong they got the facts?
Yes. Whoa. Many stories purportedly based on classified information about lots of stuff, but especially about Russia, that are just dead wrong.
I was interested in your comment that you made as well, that the president said to you, if there were some satellite associates of his that did something wrong, it would be good to find that out. That the president seemed to talk to you specifically on March the 30th and say, I'm frustrated that the word is not getting out that I'm not under investigation, but if there are people that are in my circle that are, let's finish the investigation. Is that how you took it?
It might just be used to confuse
you made a comment earlier about the Attorney General, previous Attorney General, asking you about the investigation on the Clinton emails, saying that you've been asked not to call it an investigation anymore, but to call it a matter. And you had said that confused you. Can you give us additional details on that?
Well, it concerned me because we were at the point where we had refused to confirm the existence, as we typically do, of an investigation for months.
893
and it was getting to a place where that looked silly because the campaigns were talking about interacting with the FBI in the course of our work. The Clinton campaign at the time was using all kinds of euphemisms, security review, matters, things like that, for what was going on. We were getting to a place where the Attorney General and I were both going to have to testify and talk publicly about it. And I wanted to know, was she going to authorize us to confirm we had an investigation? And she said, yes, but don't call it that, call it a matter.
I love
and
it.
I said, why would I do that?
1-2 combos and shit.
And she said, just call it a matter. And again, you look back in hindsight, you think, should I have resisted harder? I just said, all right, this isn't a hill worth dying on. And so I just said, okay, the press is going to completely ignore it. And that's what happened when I said, we have opened a matter. They all reported the FBI has an investigation open. And so that concerned me because that language tracked the way the campaign was talking about the FBI's work. And that's concerning.
It gave the impression that the campaign was somehow using the same language as the FBI because you were handed the campaign language and told to be able to use the campaign.
And again, I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but it gave the impression that the Attorney General was looking to align the way we talked about our work with the way a political campaign was describing the same activity, which was inaccurate. We had a criminal investigation open. As I said before, the federal bureau investigation. We had an investigation open at the time, and so that gave me a queasy feeling.
I'm going to be gone for maybe 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Comey. I appreciate very much you being here. West Virginians are very interested in this hearing that we're having today. I've had over 600 requests